I don't think the guy that was in charge of the background checks knew what he was doing. I don't think this was intentional. I think what I said was the case. Wow, that sounds good. Because why is a guy who, is the rec department director or something, he cares about sports and, the town. Why should he know about background checks? So where's the onus here? Is it on? And we can't blame this on the CRAs because they obviously don't want to sell the, Nat Crim search with an SSN trace. They want to sell the better search. Even if we're just looking at it from a pure revenue standpoint of why would the CRA want to sell the $8 search when they could sell something more? But personally working with the people that make up these CRAs, I can tell you that is not the case. It's not the financial aspect. I would say 70% of the people in our industry are in this industry because they care and they actually want to make a difference and protect people. And I'm going to be honest, children are at the top of that list because who doesn't want to protect children?
Welcome all. Lieutenant Dan. My real name is actually Dan Chillis. Hello, all. Dan Skachillis with the Workplace Violence Mitigation podcast, better known to all of you as Lieutenant Dan. I have a very special guest with me tonight, Meghan Martinsen. Meghan and I are in a similar vocation, which is the background investigations industry. But more importantly, Meghan and I are both parents that have had some really poor experiences with some of the youth sports arenas that our kids have been in over the years. Mine have since moved on; they're no longer in that space. And we're not looking to bash all coaches by any means, but the industry as a whole certainly needs some work with regard to how they vet their coaches and who gets in there. So I'm going to let Meghan tell you a little bit about herself and how our paths kind of crossed, and we will pick up the conversation from there. So Meghan, welcome, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate you having me here tonight. I appreciate the fact that I met you on LinkedIn. Really excited that I can take my passion and actually do something about it because you have the knowledge that I don't have in this industry. As Dan said, I am in the background screening industry, background investigations. I am kind of in an adjacent field to Dan. I started my career in this field as a researcher in New Jersey. I moved over to multiple companies, did wholesale data, but all related to background screening, sex offender registry, national criminal database. I got a really good education in the entire industry, learned what's good and what is not good. I ended up at Red Trends Technologies. Here, I'm the VP of Sales and Product Development. Fortunately, I work for a company that lets me tell them what is good, what is safe, and we only use best practices. Can't say that for all companies. Dan and I, our paths crossed on LinkedIn when I posted about my experience as a soccer coach. I use that term very loosely because let's be clear, I was coaching 3-year-olds. So basically I was just corralling children. But the point of my post was the fact that I wasn't background checked. I started coaching 2 weeks in, I receive an email and it says, do this within 6 weeks. So to be clear, soccer season is not really that long this time of year, especially for kids that age. So do your background check within 6 weeks. We're nearing the end of the season. So that's ridiculous, first of all. And it asks for my information. So I'm suspect. Like, all right, I'm going to do this. Well, because I can't help myself. And this is what I do for a living. And I like to test things and make sure the system is working. I put in incorrect information. I gave the wrong social. I gave the wrong address history. I gave a variant of my name. I purposely put one that I knew was tricky and could sometimes mess the system up with automation, like with a hyphen. I knew my background check was gonna be done within 24 hours because they were running a database search. It could be called a nat crim search, a national criminal database search. It's known by many things. But what it is not a background check. It is pointer data. It is not a background check for someone that is interacting with children. So
Yeah,
I
and,
did. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
that's okay. We talked about this, at length offline before we actually got onto the idea of putting this on the podcast, and, you know, these youth sporting things, it rubs me because they are always looking for the cheap way out for this, right? They just want to check the box and say we did a background. We have company, and we actually refuse to do it this way, but there are some out there that will run nothing but the nat crim, which is really, it's not even FCRA compliant. And I know that you're dealing in in a lot of cases with volunteers here. So, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds on the compliance issue, because what we're focused on here in this conversation, is what is right and what is wrong. And they know that it is not sufficient, right? A lot of these coaches that actually, partake in inappropriate conduct are simply terminated from the gym that they're working at and allowed to go on to another gym to do it again. So it doesn't even result in an arrest, let alone a conviction that is reportable in a background check, which is why these things have to be so much more in depth. Um, and the fact that, first of all, that they would let you have contact with these kids before the background was completed until you had 6 weeks to do it, that's ridiculous.
Oh, but also after I gave the fake information, it was an SSN trace and a nat crim search. That was the background check. Um, so I knew it was done in 24 hours. I kept coaching 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Nothing. No one said anything. So really, no one was reading the results. Nobody was opening those emails or however they received the results. So not only was it not really a background check, the time frame that was acceptable for it to be performed was out of control. And then you don't check the results. So basically, for this amount of time, weeks, so months, they had someone coaching children, directly interacting with little kids, and they didn't know who I was, for sure.
Did you
Like,
draw this to their attention at all? Did you
I
actually
did.
say, "Hey, look, I gave you bogus information just to see what would happen," and you did nothing
I
about it?
did. So I went to the mayor, I went to the chief of police, and the chief of police was awesome. He's like, "We used to do all the background screening all of everybody." And he's like, "I guess we need to," he's like, "We absolutely need to do it again." So he, in my situation, I lobbied them, gave them the information. I said, "Listen, I did this for a reason. It's not to cause trouble. It's to make an impact and to make sure that nobody with a really crappy background gets through, and is in proximity of children. It's beyond me. So in my situation, it's changed. However, I'm one town, probably have a like our town is so small. I just think about how many towns across the nation this is happening in. And the only reason I know anything about this, that was able to draw attention to this issue, is because of what I do for a living. If
Absolutely.
I was just a regular, mom looking at this and coaching, I'd be like, wow, a national criminal and background check. And they're running my social. That's really thorough because it sounds thorough. It sounds good.
People just don't, they don't understand. In fact, I used to, I do a lot of public speaking. I used to talk on this topic quite a bit. It's faded out over the years because it's been replaced by other things, frankly, the active shooter stuff and the workplace violence stuff and whatnot. But I find by and large that parents, and I'm not saying that they are gullible or they're just not aware, right? I always tell them, ask good questions, demand excellent answers, right? So when you go in, you say, do you do background checks on your people? The standard answer is, "Well, yes, we do." And they leave it at that. What do you do? I wanna see it from start to finish. I wanna understand your process. And truth be told, most of these gym owners or these organizational heads, they don't know the process. They're not familiar with this at all. At all. They don't know what they're talking about. So it becomes a huge problem.
To be fair, I don't think the guy that was in charge of the background checks knew what he was doing. I don't think this was intentional. I think what I said was the case. Wow, that sounds good. Because why is a guy who, is the rec department director or something, he cares about sports and, the town. Why should he know about background checks? So where's the onus here? Is it on? And we can't blame this on the CRAs because they obviously don't want to sell the, nat crim search with an SSN trace. They want to sell the better search. Even if we're just looking at it from a pure revenue standpoint of why would the CRA want to sell the $8 search when they could sell something more? Um, but personally working with the people that make up these CRAs, I can tell you that is not the case. It's not the financial aspect.
Yeah.
I would say 70% of the people in our industry are in this industry because they care and they actually want to make a difference and protect people. And I'm going to be honest, children are at the top of that list because who doesn't want to protect children? Um, I don't know the answer. I feel like, but then I say I don't know the answer, but I really do know the answer. And that is it should be a national mandated background check. It should be a comprehensive check that's designed by people in the industry, by security professionals. It shouldn't be left to the Department of Recreation. It
Right.
shouldn't be left to the coaches. It's not their job. It's not really
Right.
fair to put that on them.
Right.
Yeah, it's up to the lawmakers. So,
Well,
but
I'm gonna make
why
a
is this not happening? Why is this such? I, I don't know. Why is this an issue that's divisive? I can't
Yeah.
understand.
Well, again, I think that parents are quick to roll over when people tell them, "Yeah, we do backgrounds." "Oh yeah, absolutely. We do backgrounds here." Well, what does that look like? So I'm going to make a statement here, and this statement, what I'm about to say, has a purpose to it, and it is my purpose is that I hope that every parent that sees this podcast gets extremely pissed off and upset over this. I was in law enforcement for 24 years. I dealt with my share of child molesters, pedophiles. My wife of 26 years was a federal agent, and the last 2 years of her career was spent in child pornography. So, very familiar with this type of thing. These individuals that do this to kids are predators. They build their entire life around the fact that they want to molest these children. They are extremely patient. They will invest time, energy, and money. My wife actually worked a case with another agency many years ago, because she's been out for 20 plus years now. But this individual was in the state of Illinois, a doctor that specialized in adolescent females, and they arrested him for possession of child pornography. So here's an individual that has gone through the effort of getting his MD to put him in close proximity to his target victims. That just goes to show you what these people will do. It's like an alcoholic. You don't set them loose in a liquor store. You don't sit them at the bar and say, behave yourself. It's not going to happen. These people are driven by this desire to molest these kids, and they will build their entire life around it. And these are the people that become the coaches in these facilities because it's a target rich environment. They will groom these kids for years. In some cases, they groom the entire family until the kid hits the trigger age for them, 12, 14, whatever that case may be, and they're already a friend of the kid. So moving into the molestation phase is relatively easy for them. It's not a problem. And the family trusts them. I've known this guy for years. He would never. He's been planning this for years. That's why he's doing this. So for your organization or any organization to answer when you ask them, are you doing backgrounds? And they say, yes, we do backgrounds. That is not an answer. It's not. Right. And
Right.
we're going to need a whole army of parents that are going to push the lawmakers to standardize what's going to be done and mandate it. That's what we need nationwide.
Exactly. I also just don't understand. I still don't understand why this issue is a problem. I don't understand who can't get behind this. It's beyond me. I don't understand that, and I never will. Um, I have to say, I also volunteer for my church, and they do a phenomenal job with screening, and that's actually without my help. And so of course, they were the first agent, first place that I volunteered with, and that I was background checked since I entered this industry. They not only ran, a nat crim, they ran county, they ran a CBSV on me. So they actually ran the only true verification of identity, search besides, biometrics. And then we had to go through safety training where it talked about grooming, where it talked about signals, or talked about what to look for. And then it said, two people, two adults to a child is never in a bathroom with a kid, like it or with an adult. And that training was awesome. And that background check was awesome. And, I really looked into it. I was trying to poke holes in their process, but I was not able to. So I can say some organizations do a really good job. And then I would love to take that model and bring it to Congress, because it's not happening in the States. I actually think, well, I know that we're seeing a trend that, I'm gonna say this, is protecting offender or ex former offenders over our children, over everyone, honestly, by making it harder to background check someone, by redacting dates of birth, by making it harder. You're not only hurting kids, hurting vulnerable people by, letting potential cases slip through the cracks because you miss it. Um, I just saw something the other day on LinkedIn, a woman who lost a very good job because her this case that came up under her name in LA, it actually was not her, but the company couldn't wait for it to be for her to be excluded, because the CRA, no fault of their own, was unable to truly verify that this wasn't her. And you know whose fault that is?
Yeah,
California. That is the
absolutely.
that's what I'm gonna say, like, and I know that's gonna anger some people, but we're protecting ex-offenders. Let's protect children with that same sense of urgency that we're protecting ex-offenders.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well,
I
Megan, like you said, in order to get this change, we're going to have to anger people. That's the whole point of this conversation. And I expect that we will probably have to get other people on this show and do other episodes and get people fired up. That's the only way that we are going to change things, you know. But you are absolutely right. I mean, I'm in Illinois, and we are right behind California and all the silliness that they enact here. So it is very much designed to protect the offender. And then they stand up there at their podiums and preach that they're the better candidate for this or that. And they, when you ask them about it, they tap dance around it. I mean, it's just insane. It's sickening, frankly.
It is. This shouldn't be an issue at all. And I'm gonna say, you had talked about coaches that would jump from, gym to gym. They would just, and after doing something, um, we all know what I mean. In those instances, a background check, like for gyms and coaches, people that do tend to move around, part of the background check should be a verification, not only of their employment. Obviously, that's important, but doing reference checks, that should be mandatory. And I don't think people think about that when you talk about a background check. But what is more valuable than talking to someone who directly interacted with someone in that capacity? They know them, they know their strengths, but they also know the dirty laundry. They know the dirty secrets, and they know why they left, the real reason.
Right.
But I'm going to say, I believe California also does not allow personal references now. So, yeah, I'm calling you out, California,
Yeah,
again.
well, and I'm right there with you. I will tell you that it's interesting because one of our specialties, and there's probably a handful of laws in the state of Illinois that I could possibly get behind. The rest of them are just a joke. Illinois, we do a lot of public service backgrounds here, so police and fire, and they just enacted a law for police officers in Illinois. It's called the Sonia Massey Act. It takes effect January 1st, and it requires that if you're hiring a police officer, part-time, full-time, doesn't matter, you have to obtain and review all of their personnel files unredacted from every previous employer. Now, I'm not suggesting that they do this, that this is what they're going to do for coaches, but does it give you a sense that we could do something better or beef something up or make some changes? Absolutely. I think, social media searches for a coach that is dealing with youth is certainly in order. Certainly the court criminal records are in order, and a number of other things. But with these references, what it does with the references with the law enforcement thing is it takes away the former employer's ability to simply say decline the answer. Because we get that all the time. Decline the answer, decline the answer. My attorney says I shouldn't say anything, decline the answer. Now, based on state law, they can't do that anymore. And I think when you're talking about youth sports, if we are going to make a push to standardize and require some kind of background investigation for these folks that actually means something, the ability for a previous gym to say, I have nothing to say about him except that he doesn't work here anymore, should not be allowed. It should not be allowed. How else are you going to stop these people from moving? I personally know a coach that was terminated from my daughter's gym many, many years ago, prior to the owner that has it now, for an inappropriate relationship with one of the gymnasts in that gym. The age discrepancy, disgusting is all I can tell you. And they terminated him, and he went right across straight lines and got hired by another gym, and he was right back in business. There's no reason that should happen. None.
I don't understand why everyone is not a mandatory reporter. Now, I'm in New Jersey and everyone is a mandatory reporter. Now, they're not going to go and prosecute someone who's, just the average Jane Smith walking down the street if she doesn't make that call. But they are going to prosecute the teacher or the gym if in New Jersey, by law, they are mandatory reporters. If they don't, they can be prosecuted. So I'm confused. Is that not the case in your state?
It is not. So mandatory reporters in Illinois would be limited to law enforcement personnel, fire
Teacher?
personnel, nurses, doctors in a hospital, nurses or doctors, private physicians that you would see. They would be what we would consider mandated reporters here. But as far as a gym owner or a coach, no. So they're allowed to hide behind the fact that it's not mandated, and how you can hide behind that fact and still say, it's just not right. How can I let this kid continue to be victimized and keep my mouth shut? Well, how can I do that? But
Can you
they
see
do it.
that? I
They do it. They do it, and just like you, I've had enough of it. My daughter was an athlete. She's a junior in college now, and she was an athlete from the time she was about your daughter's age, about 4. Had a long athletic career that ended, unfortunately, just a few months back because of coaching issues at the college that she's attending that I'm not going to get into because she's still there. But um, she was in gymnastics during the Larry Nassar thing. You've got some very, very high profile Olympic gymnasts that were abused by this guy right under the nose of USAG, which is, let's just say that they've leave a little bit to be desired. And when it all started to come out, they just seem to be much more concerned about burying it and hiding it than they do doing right by these kids. We can't stand for that anymore. It shouldn't it shouldn't be
No.
allowed.
At this point, we know there is an issue. There is a big problem. We also know that there is a potential solution, maybe multiple solutions. The only thing that I can do in order if to sleep at night is to start working on this. The first thing that I did was I reached out to Dan and I said, what's your take on this? What have you seen?" And he educated me like a lot because he has been in this industry longer than I have, and he has the law enforcement background, which I definitely don't have. And I learned a lot. And so I have been thinking about this and I know what type of product that we need. And it has to be a pretty extensive background check. But I also know that we work with CRAs that are on board with making an affordable package. I know this because I've been doing, like, I don't want to say focus groups, but I've been doing random reach outs and talking to CRAs and asking them, like, what are you doing about this? And they are all on board with making affordable but comprehensive background checks available to youth sports or anybody, it doesn't have to be sports, any recreation, anybody interacting with children, because that's really, it's a big reason why we're all in this industry.
Yeah,
Then the problem becomes, how do we make this happen? And I think the answer is, it's a multi-pronged answer, as everything is. The first thing is, we need to figure out who can make this change. And I think right now the answer is not the states. They won't do it. If they do it, every single state will do it differently. So the only thing that makes sense to me is to go to the federal government, and we have to go nationwide. This is something that's important that should be federal because background checks it needs to be checked across the entire nation. The society that we live in is very mobile. I live in New Jersey. I can be in Pennsylvania, Delaware within 15 minutes in either direction, New York in 2 hours. Why would I commit a crime like 5 minutes from me? No, I don't have any
right.
stats on where people commit crimes, so it makes sense to me to not commit a crime right by my house. But we're a mobile society, so we need to do nationwide background checks. We need to verify who somebody is. Like, why is that crazy? And
It's
then
not
do checks so we know who we're dealing with. And then, like you said, protect the people that are giving the references. Because if they're scared to give an accurate reference,
right.
it should be
Some
harder to move
element of
forward.
immunity in the law in Oakland, Illinois law with regard to the Sonia Massey Act does provide that right in the statute. It says that employers that are basically commanded to do this as a result of the legislation are provided immunity for the information that they give. Now, it's got to be true and accurate, right? So this is going to require long term for all of these gyms to keep accurate records in writing, on your computer, whatever the case may be. But if you're going to say, hey, I let this guy go because he was inappropriately touching several gymnasts, or I got complaints from several gymnasts, you better have that in writing somewhere to back it up, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
but to conceal that and allow this individual to go on to another position where he's put in with kids again and let them do the same thing. How many victims do we need before we go, that's
That's
enough?
criminal. That is criminal.
It is criminal and it should
It's
be
criminal.
treated as such. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yeah. So the second thing we need to do, what we did, we figured out who can make the change. It has to be the federal government on a federal level. And then it's, how do we do it? One of my first thoughts was like, we need a celebrity because of course that's the easy media, social media, everything. But more importantly, we need people just like me, just like Dan. We need parents. We need parents to start making a fuss, to raise a scene.
Absolutely.
Do it on a local level. If everybody approaches this on a grassroots level in their own town or whatever your kids do, if it's a county sport, if it's I don't know, anything, a club, ask, ask the questions, ask the tough questions. What kind of background check are you running on the people that are interacting with my kids? Ask the questions and get good answers. And if you don't like the answers or you don't understand the answers, if you don't understand the answers, reach out to me or Dan. You can find us on LinkedIn. Dan, we can share our LinkedIn handles. Um, Reach out because we'll help you with
Yeah.
no ulterior motives. We want everybody in every single town across the nation to ask these questions. And then if you're finding out that they're running crap background checks, it's inexcusable, first of all. But then you need to say to them, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Because this is what my research shows, and your background check is not acceptable. And then
Yeah.
if they don't give you a good answer and say, okay, we're going to change that. Um, Also, again, reach out to us. We want you to be angry because anger is it's gonna affect change. Um,
Angry and confrontational. I
oh,
mean, go to these politicians, those people that are at these town halls, or even, when they get on the radios or they give their speeches. And at some point, they're all like, I do this for the children. It's all for the children. What an opportunity to go, really? Well, tell me why then there's no laws in this state or nationwide that mandate proper backgrounds on all of these coaches. Why then are all of these youth sporting arenas infiltrated with pedophiles because it's a target rich environment? Why does that happen? If you're doing this if you're all about the children, if all of you are doing this because you want to help the children, which is usually a bunch of bullshit, then tell me why this is happening and what are you going to do to help see it through. Megan, like you and I can certainly rally the industry, our industry, right? And say, look, we need to come up with a cost effective, but effective being the key word here, background for vetting these people. And we need to present something that, coupled with laws that we're going to try to get changed, is going to resolve this issue. Like you said, we know what needs to be done, and it really isn't that difficult. It's not that hard, right? So the excuse for not doing it, there isn't one. There isn't one. We're being lied to by these people. I mean, come on.
yeah, it's it's reprehensible.
It is.
But if you're angered by this, if you can't believe that what we're saying is true, please do reach out to us because we want to form a coalition, and parents are the most important part of that coalition. Because I don't know about you, Dan, but I am done talking about it. I'm gonna, like they say, put my money where my mouth is, but put my actions where my mouth is. So I want to do something instead of just sitting behind, the camera or talking about this because we've been talking about it a lot. But now I'm ready to do something. I'm tired of just talking about it because this is
I'm
such a
with you.
stupid. I can't even believe I can't even believe it's an issue.
Yeah. So as we go on to wrap this conversation up and try to move this ball down the field for all of our listeners out there, I implore you to like and share this as much as you possibly can. We want to get as many eyes on this information as possible. I tried to get this passed in my state of Illinois once before, and it was shot down by some of the politicians out there that had ridiculous reasons for doing so. At that time, Megan, I kind of phrased this the "we check because we care" movement. Um, and that still sits on my desk over here in the corner collecting dust at this point, but I'm all for reviving it. And it is about checking because you care. The industry is not going to, this is not going to make them $1 million. There's not that many coaches out there, right? But it is going to protect these kids. So if you and I work in the background on getting the industry rallied, and we can get some parental support with people saying, hey, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. These are my kids. I think we can get this done. We can make this happen. We just need to hold people to task about it. And like you said, ask great questions and demand good answers. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Don't let them check the box and walk away. That's garbage. So you can find both Megan and I on LinkedIn. Like I said, if you see this podcast, like it, share it. You can find more episodes on our YouTube channel. Megan, do you want to give any other information on how people can get in touch with you?
You can reach out to me. I work at Red Trends Technologies. Megan, Meghan at Red Trends, redtrends.com. And I will respond to your email. So email, LinkedIn, You can find me.
And you guys can always get a hold of me through CLS Background Investigations. Go to our website. All of our information is there, workplaceviolencemitigation.com. You can find everything from CLS to Macton to Hawkeye to all the things that we do. But this may be a little off of our typical workplace violence mitigation topic, but it is tremendously important. And if anybody that sees this has comments that they want to make, reach out for us. We'll get you on the show. We'll do this all over again, and we'll continue to do this until people change the way they're doing things, until we're actually protecting the kids. Meghan, thank you very much for your time and bringing this problem to light. Knock on wood. Let's change this. Let's do it. We can do this, right? We can do
Absolutely. Thank
this.
you so much, Dan. I
So
really appreciate the invite, and I can't wait to have you on the Background Screening Collective. We're going to continue the conversation on my podcast as well.
absolutely, absolutely. And I will when we figure out when we're gonna drop those out for public consumption, I will certainly post it on our social media as well. So until then, good night and keep your kids safe.